Business Review, a daily program that delves into the latest and most significant economic stories. From stock markets to currency news, Business Review covers the most up-to-date stories in the global financial world.
A preliminary calculation of results released by the Japanese government showed that the actual growth rate of Japan's GDP for the second quarter this year fell 27.8% year-on-year, marking the largest drop in the country after the World War II. Data shows that excluding the changes in commodity prices, Japan's GDP in the second quarter fell 7.8% from the previous one. Personal consumption saw a quarterly decline of 8.2% due to reduced travel and dining out. The sharp drop in external demand also led to a quarterly decline of 18.5% in exports. Nevertheless, Japan's economic condition in the second quarter was still relatively better than those of the United States and the Eurozone, with the latter two declining by 32.9% and 40.3% year-on-year, respectively. Japan's decision not to completely restrict travel and economic activities during the state of emergency partially curbed the economic decline. In addition, senior economic analysts told the Japanese media that the rapid recovery of the Chinese economy was also an important external factor. Regarding the future trend of the Japanese economy, the latest forecast issued by the Japanese government shows that the Japanese economy will gradually improve from the third quarter. It says that even if the epidemic situation worsens again, the actual growth rate in the fiscal year of 2020, ending March next year, will not be lower than -5%. However, the government's forecast is considered too optimistic, as it is higher than the average prediction of the society.
The global health crisis has put the dreams of millions of poor Indians aiming to join the ranks of the middle class into an indefinite freeze. For one young man, it means he may not be able to put his younger brother through law school. Ashish Kumar shares a common dream with millions of Indian workers to escape poverty and join the country's growing middle class, but like many, the 20-year-old's aspiration had been put on hold by the global health crisis. Ashish was a technician with a degree in plastic molding, a big step for his family who lived most of his life in a mud hut. Until March, he worked an 8-hour shift making boxes for Ferrero Rocher chocolates, earning $173, and he was able to send some of this income home to support his family, including enough to build a proper brick home and put his younger brother into law school. The money stopped coming in, though, when India went into lockdown, and Ashish's factory has now shut. Out of work, he's been forced to make 900-mile return trip home to North India. He originally planned to save up and build his own recycling factory. Now he and millions like him face an uncertain future, whether their dreams of economic freedom can ever be realized.
Rafael Viguera is taking no risks. Since the start of the coronavirus pandemic, he has traded in his comfortable house in Havana for his roadside, tiny wooden juice shack out by the fortress overlooking the city bay to self-isolate. The 55-year-old considers that up on the sparsely populated hillside from which Spanish soldiers used to fend off pirates, he is safe from the highly contagious virus that has infected around 2,000 in the city sprawling below. He can also better look after his hut on wheels that usually sells lemonade, coconut water and mojitos to tourists, but has been closed for business ever since the Caribbean island nation in March shut its borders and ordered a lockdown. The suspension of public transport means his night custodian cannot make it to work, and he is worried about vandals. Viguera sleeps on a camping bed in the 3.5-meter by 2.5-meter shed and leaves the front flap open to prevent it heating up too much in the first summer sun. A friend brings him food and water. Now he struggles to live off his savings as there has been no financial aid for those who are self-employed, while Cuba has done a fairly successful job at containing its coronavirus outbreak. Vigura says he will ride it out in his hut until the end.
Japan was hit by its biggest economic contraction in record on the second quarter of this year as the pandemic crushed consumption and exports, keeping policymakers under pressure for bolder action to prevent a deeper recession. The world's third largest economy shrank at an annualized 27.8% in April. June government data showed this on August 17th, marking the biggest decline since comparable data became available in 1980 and slightly bigger than a median market forecast for a 27.2% drop. The main culprit behind the dismal reading was private consumption, which plunged a record 8.2% due to the lockdown. External demand, or exports minus imports, shaved a record 3 percentage points of GDP as overseas shipments plunged 18.5% and auto exports were hit particularly hard. Falling global vehicle sales have hurt automakers like Mazda and Nissan, among the biggest drivers of Japan's economy and their parts suppliers. Capital expenditure declined 1.5% in the second quarter, less than a median market forecast for a 4.2% fall, as solid software investment made up for weak spending in other sectors. The economy minister Yasutoshi Nishimura conceded the GDP readings were pretty severe, but pointed to some bright spots such as a recent pickup in consumption in the country.
The U.S. state of Michigan said on August 20th that it had reached a preliminary settlement to pay $600 million to victims of the Flint water crisis, potentially closing a chapter on one of the country's worst public health crises in recent memory. Attorney General Dana Nessel said in a statement that if approved, the deal would provide the bulk of the funds to children impacted by poisoning in the water in the city of Flint and would rank as the largest settlement in the state's history. The settlement is the culmination of 18 months of talks over how to compensate residents who were sickened by tap water after state officials switched the city water supply 6 years ago, sparking a crisis that garnered national attention. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, who inherited the crisis upon taking office in 2019, acknowledged that the agreement would not solve all of the city's problems and vowed to keep allocating resources to ensure Flint's water was safe. The settlement is subject to approval by a federal judge in Michigan. In January, the Supreme Court let Flint residents pursue a civil rights lawsuit that accused the city and government officials of knowingly allowing the water supply to become contaminated with lead. Flint switched its public water source from Lake Huron to the Flint River to cut costs during a financial crisis, but the river water caused lead to leach from pipes and the city switched back to Lake Huron water the following year. More than 25,000 people were harmed through exposure to contaminants in Flint, including more than 5,000 children younger than 12, court records showed as of January. The settlement stipulates that 79.5% of the funds will be allocated to children exposed to the water, the majority who were under 6 at the time of the crisis. Some 18% will go to adults and to settle property damage.
Business Review, your daily source for the most critical stories in the financial world. Tune in next time for the latest financial news impacting the world economy.